Do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? It is a music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes. Will you join in our crusade? Who will be strong and stand with me? Somewhere beyond the barricade, is there a world you long to see? Then join in the fight that will give you the right to be free. Do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? It is a music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes. Does tomorrow ever come? You're too kind. Just so that I know how to pace this, I think I've auto-gained that down. So, can I have a show of hands for people who've seen my presentations before? Okay, all right, so there's a number that you have that haven't. So I will show you cover slides that you need to look at to get up to speed in the future. But I won't go into all detail because you'll be here for the next few weeks. All right, so I'm going to be talking about the Fractal Toroidal Moment and the propulsion to the Cosmic Summit. And what am I talking about? Well, I'm going to talk about something that really changed gears when I met one John Hutchison. And I don't know if you know, but earlier this week he nearly died. And his wife did a CPR on him. And he spent some time in hospital, but I'm very happy to say that he is home and recovering. So I want your intention and your good prayers here to see that he has a speedy recovery. I was very upset because I actually looked at probably his most important demonstration of the Hutchison effect. And on the screen there, you see the boundary layer between the steel on this side and the aluminium in what I call the sword in the stone. And here you have a yang structure. We're in the yang room. And here you have a yin structure, and this is a 20 micron boundary layer. In every yang, you have a yin and a yang. And in every yin, you have a yang and a yin. And in this room, I have a Yin Gazda at the back, or somewhere. There we go, Yin Gazda. Thank you very much, Yin. And she has in her hand a sample from John Hutchison, which she's going to pass around so you can actually touch and feel what the man had created. So if you can just pass this around amongst yourselves. Okay, so it's not this particular sample. The sample that I'm referring to here, you can see this is the yang on this side with a hole in the middle and the yin with the bump on it. And you can see the dimension profile here with the hole where the matter is destroyed and the peak where the matter is moved to. That is the sample. It's been cut. Thankfully, it was cut. I didn't ask for it to be cut, but that meant I could put it in the scanning electron microscope. And I looked at the end here. Boom! What did I find? On the boundary layer, an iron-rich crenellated microsphere, which is the signature, in my view, of ball lightning. It is the magnetic core of the pseudo-magnetic monopole that's created by the fractal toroidal moment. If you don't know what that is, give yourself a couple of weeks and you'll know, and by following some of the presentations I'll give links to. So this is an iron-rich crenellated sphere. There's another iron sphere. In this region here, in the boundary layer, so this is the classic ratio of Fe02, which is a new oxidation state of iron that was found in 2017 by creating hundreds of thousands of megapascals and at 1700 degrees. But of course, this is not happening there, and that's because it's in the fractal toroidal structure. Now, I started talking about or relating my work to ancient technology when I went to visit the Amberley Chalk Pits Museum in Sussex. If you've never been there in the UK, I recommend you go. And they have an electricity exhibition. There was some Tesla coils, some spark generators, and all kinds of other switch gear and stuff. But I was fascinated at the entrance because they had this shield on the left here. And this is the original order of electrical engineers before they had the shield that you can find on Wikipedia, okay? And that became the IEEE, which became one of the largest professional bodies in the world. And I wanted to know why this symbol was put on this thing with out of darkness cometh light, okay? Well, when I did a little bit of research on it, I found out that this is the symbol of God-controlled power. And that intrigued me, and so I just put it on this slide, and this was the first time I shared anything from past history, and it was on the 9th of June 2017. You can go and see that presentation. It was in Italy. This is the stele from 814 BC in the British Museum from which that was taken. I took this photo myself, and that is the symbol up close. It's actually 814 BC, but on the side there is cuneiform that references, it's a type of cuneiform that's from 1,000 years before. So you can get an idea that this is not recent technology, if this is a representation of technology. The second time I shared something along these lines was in my Sochi presentation to the Russian Cold Nuclear Transmutation and Ball Lightning research group in Sochi, in Russia, in the 4th of October 2018. And what we have here is what's called a sun disk. It's a symbol of what they call on Wikipedia a solar cult. And this is from northern Italy. There's many of these structures on the rocks there in this particular region. You can go and look at the links in the presentation when you have it. This is also, and this is about 2,000 years old. This is about 1,600 years old. From Ilklimoor Bartat, where I buried my grandmother, about a couple of hundred meters from this symbol. And you can see the similarity there is pretty striking, right? Well, to cut a long story short, through changing my research approach and working with the project of the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, I went from looking for neutrons, gamma, X-rays, and beta particles to, with the advice of Francesco Piantelli, who designed and invented the nickel-hydrogen LENR system, to just looking at what nature is doing. And he said, don't tell nature what it is, let it show you. So I did that, and I looked at all these different samples that came from all over the world, and the things that we were producing ourselves. And ultimately, I gave a presentation on the 5th of March, 2023, called O Day Another Dimension. I'll come into what the 2D versions of this structure is, but as you'll see there, the basic structure is, come on the next slide, which I can see and you can't. So it's here. This is the basic structure with 2 and 2, and basically, if you have one of these structures, a torus, it can only have things going through the dead center. You need 2 to make things to start going in a ring. So the minimum fractal is 2, right? And it can be 2 on every level. Here is a 4-4 structure, but it's 1 on the top tier level. Now, where this particular beam interacts with the Tor level above on the fractal structure, there is a disruption beam that can come out. So you can see it here, it's coming out, and I will show you examples of this from physical experiment. But it's at the intersection of this torsional, rotational structure and the Tor on the level above. Okay, this area here is called the non-radiating boundary. It's very specific, and from that non-radiating boundary, there is 0 electromagnetic waves being transmitted when the structure is properly formed. Only the scalar and vector potential is able to go through here. So this is basically like a Star Trek shield. And when you spin it up, it will vanquish anything. So within 10 minutes of finishing that presentation on the 3D structure, I gave this presentation called O Day, A New Dawn of an Old Age. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And I was talking to the great George Howard, who has put this presentation together. Thank you. A big hand for George Howard. And he said, you know, I like that phrase. Do you mind if I use it? I said, go ahead. Everything's open. It's yours. So what I am standing on there is the great step in the gallery in the Great Pyramid of the Giza Plateau. And why I'm standing there is because that is the Chi Rho of Cairo inside the pyramid. And in this presentation, which you can go and see, I show that the same structure I'm going to show you exactly and precisely defines every component in the pyramid. And it's based on the simple geometry, which has the Vesica Pisces, which we've just heard from Jordan. A big clap for Jordan's presentation, please. And in the center of that structure is the Christ center. That is, Jesus was given Chi and Rho Christos, basically, in my view, because he decoded this. Okay, so where does the work come from that I have been involved in? Well, it comes from Winston Bostick, who was charged from 1948, but of course the hydrogen bomb went off in 1952, as we saw from Paul's presentation earlier. Big hand for Paul's presentation. Thank you. And he worked at Lawrence Livermore Laboratory on Project Sherwood with the Los Alamos National Laboratory. And essentially what they did was they did high 10,000 amp current discharges from a deuterated titanium electrode. It produced a plasma loop, which then magnetically reconnected. And it had this toroidal magnetic moment with this electric current here. And he had at least 2 of these coming together, and in this case you can see 8, and when they came together, this is a torus shooting in from 8 tori coming together, and they go over a magnetic field, and they form a tori of tori. And what he found was, and what he proposed in 1957, is that this could be the basis of structure for all matter, from the subatomic to the formation of galaxies. I would 100% agree with that. And also that he proposed that his findings could lead to ultra-fast propulsion. Do you see where I'm going now? 450,000 miles an hour. Now, to put that in context, if you were already traveling at that speed, that's 13 days to Mars from Earth. Okay? So, Ken Shoulders was brought in by one Hal Puthoff to investigate the work of John Hutchison, that you are handling the sample there, and thank God he's still alive. And in the conclusion of his secret book, which we kind of forced into the public, his 1987 book, Evie, A Tale of Discovery, this is strong electron validium, he said essentially this is an ideal monopole oscillator, and it has no effect with the magnetic or electrical magnetic fields, and it has scalar fields and so on. Phase determined, this is very important. This is in 2016 in Nature Materials, and look, from 1987, we still don't know much more about this in the white world. This is Tom Bearden talking, audio.
Orthodox science at an advanced level. What I would say is the very beginning, but it's moving pretty fast, theory of force-free fields. And these are getting very close to what Tesla was doing. They haven't added the anti-wave back in yet, but they're getting close. At least they're eliminating the overall force and doing something else with the electromagnetics that remains.
So this is a simple structure, which is the structure of a nanopole, and you have oscillating magnetic fields and an oscillating electric dipole here, and that causes, you can see, the cancellation of the electromagnetic fields, and you get the non-radiating boundary at this point. But we're going to talk about things far more interesting, and they are based on these kind of structures, which are effectively smoke rings. But I'm going to be talking about smoke rings that are in the ether, but the same process occurs in any charge-separated material, and that can even be polar material like water. Okay, it's already kind of charge separated, and especially if you have a metal in play, you've got a hydrophilic surface, it rearranges the charges in the water, and then you start spinning that, you end up with these kind of structures forming extremely quickly. So, there we go. So this is actually in Shishkin's work, this is John Hutchison's work, this is in a reactor we called Lion, and this is in Dr. Roy Shinamaza. This is HHO gas, but it's very special gas. And this was a test that we did on tungsten. And this is what you see under the microscope. This was about a 10-second, 15-second test. This zone here is the point of destruction. In fact, that's the point of destruction. That is the interface between these tori and the tori on the fractal torus at the level up. This is strontium. It doesn't exist in the original metal. This is a diamond film. It's ripping the matter apart. It's literally unwinding that matter. This is a yin force. The yin force pulls matter in from the environment and it creates new life here. Okay? You have the one will be the yin and the yang, but overall this structure is a yin force. It's a winding structure. A yang force unwinds. So this is an experiment, and this is an experiment that a 3-year-old can learn and conduct in 7 minutes, and it works 100% of the time. And on one side you get heavier elements, and on the other side you get lighter elements. The yang side rips matter apart, the yin side assembles matter. This over here is a boron crystals in the center of the Vesica Pisces on the golden ratio line, and boron is aluminium minus oxygen. And there is no calcium on this side. On this side, in the center of that structure, you have calcium without boron, and calcium is aluminium plus oxygen, some of its isotopes. This is exactly the yin-yang structure that forms in this overall structure. It's not slightly it. You cannot improve it. There's no patent anyone could ever make, patent for you guys, that will ever, aluminum as well for you guys, that will ever improve on this. This is a ball lightning and a Henk-Uren experiment that collided into a piece of fused silica that melts at 1700, just over 1700 degrees C. This is the caduceus, one of the oldest symbols known to man. Okay? This is the symbol, the thing that you've just seen, and this is weird. I saw this in 2017 and it stuck in my head. Why? Because these bubbles, which are making this light reflect from the bubbles that are coming out of a dissolved in the solution, how is it possible that it's all white around here? There must be something pulling in all the time into the center of these vortices. What? Because this works by depressurizing the water. The bubbles form and the light reflects off them, giving you the white. It also has this depressurization zone down here. So there's a torsional beam that comes down. You can see the torsional beam, and it unwinds matter specifically at this point. And on the human anatomy, it is... I won't go anywhere else. Okay, all right. So looking at a John Hutchison sample, I found yin-yangs at this quantization level. This is the same structure here and here, but looking from the side, you can see the apple core going through the apple structure. This is from the top. Take that and rotate that from 90 degrees, and there's 48 divisions around here. So these are D4D structures, and they are self-similar and fractal. And so on the 17th of February 2020, I derived this structure, which is exactly a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. I said at the time in this presentation, which you can go and see, that this is probably the structure of the physical universe. And then I thought, back on that stele that I presented several years before, there was this structure. And then I counted this, and there's 23, but then that's not full 180 degrees, so there would be another one here. So that would be 24 times 2, that's 48. So I thought, this is literally unbelievable to me. So I went to the British Museum, and I thought, what is this meant to be? And you know what it said? It's the flying disc of the sky gods. Okay, a little bit freaked out here. And then in Henk-Uren's experiment analyzing that, we found these different fractal structures. This is a 2-order structure with multiple, say 15 around here. This has got 36. This would have 48. This is 6 around there. This is 6 truncated. This is only 3, like the so-called black hole at the center of our universe, which I believe is one of these structures. And this is a simulation software that one of the followers of the project made, and you can go and investigate this. This is calcium oxide. Calcium, oxygen, and calcium oxide are all paramagnetic. They can live in this incredibly magnetic strength confining structure that self-organizes from plasma. This is copper and this is carbon. They're both diamagnetic. They orbit around it, but they can get transmuted into the center. So I shared these kind of structures, but actually specifically this with the Russian community. I shared this, which was my original structure that I came up with in a download, in a dream, in January 2018, having looked at the work of the late Neil Crichton Gold. This was the structure I came up from looking at John Hutchison samples. Then we found the physical things on a plasma experiment, which we called the Vega experiments because there was another one called the Sapphire Project. But anyway, we called it Vega. It was nothing to do with Lockheed Martin's original place that Paul mentioned. And without any comment, I sent it to them on the 30th, on the evening. Without any comment, the Russian community came back and showed this paper that was published in 1995 in the Biology of Life journal by one Schwerblis. I translated it, and blow me down. It had a current ring producing a magnetic field. Rotate 90 degrees, you get an electric field. Rotate 90 degrees, you get this. This is a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And this was the energetics research in the Soviet Union, right? I don't think it works like this, and you're going to see that it doesn't work like this. I translated this. There was a paper published by a colleague of his, and essentially they produced an electromagnetic phantom in there that when the machine was turned off and the machine was moved, it lasted for 2 days. They could see, using a fluxgate magnetometer, the magnetic oscillations in free space, quantum locked into the room in which it was generated. Okay, the guy that discovered this thing called the toroidal moment, this is not an electric dipole, it's not a magnetic dipole, this is called a toroidal moment. In electrodynamics, it's a very different thing. And it was discovered by him in 1965, working in Russia in the Dubna nuclear research facility. Unfortunately, he died very recently. It's a very great shame. I talked to his colleague a lot, but unfortunately, I didn't talk to him. This is a panic meeting in a room that I presented in 2015 in the Moscow Friendship University, and he's describing what possibly could have killed the leader of the cold nuclear transmutation and ball lightning field, called Yurzy Bazhatov, and he died doing electric arc experiments on water, and he's describing that these toroidal moments, they can literally rip the chi life force out of your body, and that's what he's describing to the people in the room was likely to have killed him. So when you have anything fast moving in a vortex or these things, you need to be aware that there is a zone in which you do not want to be, okay? And this is a serious concern that people need to heed. Okay, it was discovered, he was in his thesis in 1967. It wasn't verified until 30 years later in the West. So here is some energetics research from the 1980s using this principle. The yin force here, what you've got in here is you've got a copper strip, and then it's on a insulator, and it's formed into a Mobius coil. It's treated with radio frequency, and then he hits it with the mains voltage with a high current pulse. And in this case, it's a yin force. It's doing a zero albedo extraction and pulling that energy in, all the chi force from that point in space-time, and pulling it into the yin force. It's not as bright because yin is not as powerful. If you fuse two deuterons together, you get something like 25 million electron volts. This is a yang force, and it's projecting energy out at a distance. This is probably a lot of what your ball lightning and fake UFOs are. This is also a fake UFO, right? But you're starting to understand what they are. They're not unidentified, they're identified. Okay? And in the case of the yang, it produces more energy because according to David Freiberger's research, which was similar to the work of Nevesky in 1992, but David Freiberger worked at SLAC, was a ball lightning expert, and in 2009 he says, the structures I'm about to show you, they create a thing called the diality angle, and when it goes over a certain critical threshold, baryonic matter loses its reference to the Dirac sea, and the baryons fall apart, and they collapse into light and leptons. This is literally the God's toolbox, which is something I've been calling it with a little g since 2017. Okay, so what is a phase singularity? This is our Mobius strip. At the center of Mobius strip, you have this kind of thing. It's like a Penrose staircase. You go around this way, you don't go up. You go around that way, you don't go down. Okay? That's a phase singularity. And this is the phase diagram of a ring soliton. Okay? Toroidal moment. Magnetic, you've got current going around, magnetic moment. Rotate that 90 degrees, and you have a ring of magnetic loop here, but it's not an electric field gain. This is what I'm saying. It's not quite what you would imagine it would be. It's a toroidal moment. Now, things can link together with the toroidal moment, but the toroidal moment can encode information in fantastic ways. And I believe it's the tool that is used by your brain with your cryptographic key of your DNA, using your microtubules and the yin and the yang delocalized electrons above those benzene rings in the microtubules to interact with the Akashic record, store your memory. If you have a brain tumor and have a bit removed and you go to the other side of the universe, you'll get your memories back because they're encoded at all points in space and time instantaneously. So, But very basically, this is on, this one is on the Lion reactor, this is on the Lion reactor. That's my logo from my blog. This is in Science in 2011. This is a oxygen atom, copper, current loop, current counter loop. This is the toroidal moment. It's a real thing that people are starting to understand. This is the basic structure. This is copper oxide. Guess what? This is copper oxide. They've got a theory. We've been making it for real. Okay? So this is from Scandinavia. It's a beautiful example of the flower of life. This is something that Johanna did some fantastic videos on. I recommend you go and watch those. This is the flower of life supposedly somehow laser etched onto the Temple of Osiris in Abydos, Egypt, which is possibly a very old structure. And this I had the pleasure of putting my hand on when I was 18. It's in the right paw of the Fu dog in the central temple in Beijing. And this is the 3D structure of this 2D representation. So, when you make your 3D structure, your ball lightning here, and it's energized sufficient, it will do this. This is a piece of standard copper pipe on an iron plate. We have this on video. A hemisphere formed and instantaneously made that copper disappear. Now, to give you an idea, if you take the whole Earth and you put it into a black hole, it's 12 millimeters across. So that bit of thing, the matter might be there somewhere, or it might have done what Freiberger was suggesting. It completely collapsed. But the interesting thing that you'll see about these structures is that around the boundary, all the interesting things happen. So I'm looking under the SEM and I see a 2-order structure with a vortex, a 3-order structure with a vortex, a 4-order structure, but it hasn't really got the vortex going on. I mean, there's still a twisty thing going on, but it's not spreading out like this. Okay? 5-order structure, 6, it's really a fixed beam, and then 8, well, it's starting to have substructures. So, this is a 2-order structure. This is a piece of German work in ultrasound. You have your yin and yang center points there, and you have the ring. It's pulling material in, and this is one side and another side. These are the beams that come out. This is on Crichton Gold's experiment. This is a nickel, diamond, and deuterium Lehner experiment. This is a 1969 NOAA picture with these flares going off in this direction, but this extremely fast air coming in here. And this, I believe, the water spout is caused because the toroidal moment that comes down and destroyed that tungsten and ripped that matter apart is changing the way electrons happen here. And this is water gas produced by weakening the polar bonds between water molecules. It's not boiling it. And it's lifting it because of weird stuff. Okay, and this is the structure you see there. This is the 3-order structure. And this is on a Roy Schneemann vibrator plate. This is a yin and a yang vortex. This is the overall structure with your triangle coming down. And the crazy part about this, it's got triangular holes. And in the corner of the triangular holes, there's a little sphere, which are these little spheres that get synthesized. This is on Neil Crichton Gold, and this is on the Vega experiment. Here is on the Neil Crichton Gold experiment. You have a 4-order structure. This is the 4-order structure on the Henk structure. And here is the 4-order structure. And you can start to see these structures in very, very many religious buildings. Okay? So, the swastika, or salva sticker, the yellow bits are my additions to the Wikipedia quote, symbolizes lightning bolts, ball lightning, representing the thunder god and the king of gods, such as Indra in Vedic Hinduism, Zeus in the ancient Greek religion, Jupiter in the ancient Roman religion, and Thor in the ancient Germanic religion and Scandinavia. This is 5. So that was a swastika there, what you're seeing here. And depending on the rotation, one will wind, and it'll be a yin. And if it's going the other way, it's unwinding, it's a yang. So here's a 5-order structure. Here it is on the Neil Crichton Gold. This is on Malcolm Bendel's inside of his 24-inch sphere, and this is in the Henk urine. So this is a Lehner, pure Lehner deuterium experiment. This is in a charge-separated internal combustion engine, and this is in a hydrogen low-pressure air plasma environment. So this is your 6-order structure. I've separated out, and what do we see here? We see the cell unit of the flower of life. Over here, that's the 6, and there's a lot of 6s. Why? Because If you go back, the 4-order structure is the first time that the disruption beam kind of starts to go into the non-radiating boundary of the adjacent one. And so it kind of starts to come out, but it doesn't quite make it. But if you go to the 5, this is well within the non-radiating boundary, so that it's well linked. So most stable structures are 5, but the first stable structure, i.e. God's toolbox, little g, God's power under control, God-controlled power, is the swastika. I'm sorry, it just is. And then the 6 is super duper under control. Okay, so this is an interview you might have seen in the previous presentation this morning by Paul, and it's an interview between Eric Weinstein and Hal Puthoff, who's US Naval Intelligence. Russell Targ revealed that last year. And basically, Eric Weinstein uses that Penrose staircase to describe the phase singularity that allows for the Aharonov bomb effect, which was discovered in 1954. And that allows you to create coherent matter at any temperature, not at near absolute zero like they did in the late 1990s to create Bose-Einstein condensates, but literally at any temperature up to trillions of degrees. Okay? So, and he's saying that this is the only way you can change the constants of the physical vacuum in order to get around the limits of relativity using the Aharonov bomb effect. And in response to this, the next edit is like Hal kind of ignoring what he says. And he says, and you can go way beyond that. So there are all kinds of toroidal geometries where you have no electromagnetic fields whatsoever, but you have strong vector and scalar fields. And since you have no Lorentz force in the absence of E and B, how can you detect them? Well, you detect them by any kind of quantum detector. Who's got a quantum detector? Who's got one? You need to all put your hands up. All of you, because you have a brain. I hope so, anyway. So he describes Josephson junctions, which use quantum tunneling. Now, Harold Puthoff, I don't know if you know, he ran the psychic spy program for the CIA during the Cold War. I translated the person, Dr. Alexander Parkhomov, who was a leader in the psychic spy program in the Cold War in Russia. And basically, 9 months after he handed over this technology to the pseudo-government entity, private entity, Science Applications International Corporation, where anything useful was put so you couldn't do a freedom of information on it, basically, that was in 1992. In August 1993, he applied for this patent. This is a toroidal coil one way, a toroidal coil the other way, with an electric field oscillation potential between there. This, whether he mentions it or not, is producing a toroidal moment. Now, I feel weird next to our Lenner experiments. I'm on record before I understood any of this, of saying on live videos, I feel a bit weird near to this reactor. I'm not sure I want to be here, right? Someone sent me this from June the 15th, 2023, at Sydney Technical Museum. They're using nuclear magnetic resonance imaging, and they are finding that during conscious tasks, in conscious state and cognitive tasks, they have a magnetic vortex and an anti-vortex. And that, whether they like it or not, whether they agree with it or not, will produce a toroidal moment, which means John Hutchison could feel his experiments. Could he manipulate them? Maybe. Maybe every one of you in this room has the ability to manipulate matter, because matter at the finest level to galaxies is made with these structures. So, this is from 1992, Afanasyev and Dubovik, some remarkable charge current structures. They are doing all of the maths. All of the maths has been done. Don't say, I want to see the maths. It's already been done before the West even woke up. They are so far ahead, it's literally embarrassing. Right? It's so embarrassing. And they say here that inside the torus and inside, obviously, the fractal tori, you will have the Aharonov bomb effect. And this allows you to do the coherence of matter at any temperature, and I would refer you to Systems and Methods for Creating Coherent Matter Waves. It's a patent awarded to Lockheed Martin in 2013. So, in 1979, my father asked me and my 3 brothers and my sister to come downstairs one late evening in the summer. And I'm going to put the microphone down and I'm going to shout. He said, kids, look up there. So we're all lining up in a row and I'm going, what's this about? And in the sky, 4 lights went So I never thought about that until a few years ago because I was 7. You don't think about it. It's just pretty lights in the sky. But pretty weird, don't you think? So it was even weirder when last year someone sent me this. This is a paper that you can download from NASA's website. It's on an intergalactic transport propulsion system, right? And in this paper, it says it's based on their observations of UFO technology. And every single thing that you've seen in Congress, so-called revealed, in the last year or so, is word for word in this paper, which you can download, right? So if you haven't been paying attention, it's already been said a long time ago, right? And what you've got here is a current loop, current loop, current loop, current loop, current loop, current loop. You've got magnetic fields combining into create a vortex at the phase singularity at the center there. That is exactly the same as that structure. They don't know it's a toroidal moment. They don't mention a toroidal moment, but that's what it is. It's the bit of electrodynamics you're not allowed to know, right? Now, in that paper, they referred to this 1976 study where they fired a laser into nonlinear plasma and they produced fields of over 1,000 Tesla. Now, to put that in context, MIT got very excited when they created a superconducting magnet a few years ago and it was 50 Tesla for fusion in tokamaks. This is 1,000 Tesla, one laser pulse. They replicated that in 2021, basically funded by everyone on planet Earth. You're not allowed to know about it, but they're researching it, right? And you know what happened? What you've got is this here is 1,300 Tesla, and in the center you have 1,300 Tesla coming up to a dead stop. That is your phase singularity. That is the magnetic core of what is ball lightning. And that's the thing no one's allowed to discuss. I'm going to let
radiation, a pencil of radiation, carries energy with it, and energy has mass. And therefore, a pencil of radiation must exert some attraction on things beside it. What about getting a pencil of radiation curved into a circle so the light goes round and round? Then the attraction it exerts is concentrated as if at the center. So what is it that bends this circle, this pencil of radiation into the circle? It's the gravitational attraction of the pencil of radiation itself. That was the idea of the Jian.
1954.
Actually, if you think of different possibilities for the size of that Jian, bigger or smaller, you find that if it's very big, the energy is low. To push the radiation together requires energy. And you climb a hill like the hill of a volcano until you've come to a maximum energy. And then if the pencil of radiation becomes any smaller in size, the energy starts to go down and the thing collapses. So a Jian is really an unstable entity. It either blows up into a cloud of radiation traveling away in all directions, or it collapses into a totally collapsed object, something that we today would call a black hole.
The term he basically invented.
But that stability analysis I didn't have in mind when I first published this work. Only later did I see that that's the feature that's dominant. But nowadays, I'm attracted with the idea that this pencil of radiation going around in a circle does not have to be light. It could be gravitational waves. And you can have gravitational waves imploding to make a black hole.
And that is what we've done. Bold claim, but we have the facts to back it up. The experimental facts you saw earlier. This is what you have with a phase singularity. This is a topological monopole. It was predicted and then found in Aalto University. It's not like you imagine a real monopole, magnetic monopole, but this is a topological monopole. Now, this is the axial hypertoroidal moment as presented in Physical Review B in 2014. Now, I want you to observe some things here. When you have an electric field of megavolts per millimeter, and you have it going one way, you have rotation of the magnetic moments one way, and when you have the field, it switches into another stable state where the vortex goes around the other way. Look what we found in an excess heat production device that was published on the 2nd of January in Nature Scientific Reports. I co-authored this paper with Binjuan Huang at Taipei University. This is what we found. This is an apple. This is an apple. That's the core structure in the sacred geometry structure. This is a yin-yang in a yang and a yang-yang in a yin. This is a pair. They would then fractally build. This is phosphorus, carbon, and copper, and we have literally shown that these structures can strip 200 nanometers of copper. We've got copper wrapped around in a wave function as it stripped it from the material. You don't want this thing flying into your body. It's carrying matter, it's carrying fantastic energy, you cannot even begin. Now in 1992, and I found this on the CIA archive that was made public in 2017, there was this Flight to Alpha Centaurus document, and it says that this is the same as cold fusion. Bearing in mind that was 1989, this is 1992. They extract energy from metal and directly generate electricity, which enables them to close the loop, yielding effective a COP approaching affinity until all the fuel is in the new phase. And it also enables propulsion. And they said to get with it to Alpha Centauri in 6 years using 1 kilo of iron. Now, on the right here, you can see structures that we produced in our Vega experiments, Henk Uren. And there's 3 structures here which do not care about the anode here and the overall chamber being a cathode. They only care about each other. And you can see here, there is a forward-facing beam here that's causing this one to move around in its future path. It projects out in front of it, in my view, a gravitational wave. And if you get 2 or 3 of these into a loop, it will produce a gravitational loop, which will produce the next fractal toroid gravitational beam in the azimuth of those 3 that are in a loop this way. That will increase this gravitational azimuth. They will pull it in. This will get stronger. They will pull it in, and you'll get a black hole event. This is, we've been able to control these, and so I will play this now. On the right, on the left, you see the outside of the reactor. We've got a tube, and this is the bottom of the tornado that's interacting and instantaneously turning the steel to orange. And when it moves away, it stops being orange. I believe this is because it's ripping the electrons out of the metal, possibly carrying some other metal with it, probably creating iron-rich crenellated spheres from that process. And as soon as the electrons, the tornado is removed, the electrons spread around within the metal and it stops glowing. But on the right here, when I press play, oh, is it going to do it? Ah. Don't do this to me. There we go. On the right, if you go through this, we have a copper tube. It's very specifically I chose copper because that is copper oxide. It is one of the best materials other than yttrium to produce the photoelectric effect, the actual thing that Einstein got a Nobel Prize for. If I go back and see that again, we are producing these things which are stable for a couple of seconds. This is the tori, and you're actually looking through the ball lightning. But because of changing the exposure, we can actually see inside, and you can see the tornado that comes down from the bottom that's feeding it. Okay? Now, when you see that flash, what's happening is that's firing off towards the anode, and this is the anode, and these are the impact marks. And if I press play, you can see this anode here, and my colleague Henk Uren will go in, and you can see when it comes up that it has this structure with the fuzzy bit outside. The toroidal moment can attract toroidal moments, right? But not ordinary electromagnetics. So outside of the boundary layer, this non-radiating boundary, you have these things that are trying to join the Borg. And you can see here, and this is, in my view, I've not been able to test it, but in the center here, you have a bit of the copper that's been stripped from the copper pipe. Here you have a 6-point structure, you have a 4-point swastika here, you have a multi-point here, and this is a simulation. This is exactly equivalent, in my view, to the impact marks published by 1980 by Bostic and Nardi at the end of their attempts to create the hydrogen bomb into domestic fusion. We've got far better imagery of that same process. So this comes to a little bit crazy, okay? This is a presentation where I delved into this a little bit further. And it's about the so-called Rotus Sator Templar Magic Square. And if you're not familiar with this, this is the longest unsolved palindrome, or whatever you like to call it, and it's rotational symmetry and stuff. But to cut the whole story a lot short, because you can go and see my presentation on how I broke this down. Ball lightning, iron core, these are the elements, calcium and silicon, that have been observed by a peer-reviewed published paper for a signature of ball lightning. This is the structure. And here you can see the caduceus coming into the center, the cup of the caduceus. This is the iron-rich crenellated sphere that would be here. And this is an iron sphere that comes from the substructure on the fractal level. And this is, what's this? This you also see on those Sumerian stelae. This is the elevation of the flying disk of the sky gods. So you've seen the plan, and this is the elevation, and they're in the same position. And here is the structure, right? But this is self-similar, and it works at any scale. So how does this, the symbol of the sun god, and this, the sun god symbol, and the power, the God-controlled power with your little circle in the middle, how does that relate to our 4-4-4 structure? Well, it works like this. Exactly and precisely with the D4D ratio on the fractal structure, and it exactly matches where the non-radiating boundary interacts. It is literally impossible that this is chance. Somehow, they 100% certainly knew this, and they employed it. If you go to the old Macedonian coins, the caduceus is a symbol of trade and transportation. Think about it. So, this is the Sator-Rota square, and these are the rotational parts of the substructures of the fractal structure. And what does the Sator-Rota square mean when you translate the Latin? The divine creator comprehends and works with whirlwinds / tornadoes if you're in America. And there's one word here that doesn't translate, and they think it was just put in for no good reason, but it has an A in the actual correct alpha sense, and the O in the omega, and rep is a shortened version of a Latin word that means repeatedly. So if you add that in, you get the divine creator from alpha repeatedly to omega comprehends and works with whirlwinds. In my view, this is my hash at solving this. I think it's solved. This is from a Sumerian lantern. It's meant to produce light. 10,000 to 1,900 BC. This is about the time of the cataclysm that we're all talking about next door. This is a yang and a yin on a Hutchison sample. Okay? Destroying matter, producing a cavity, and dumping matter down. Okay? Same structure. Now, this is very important I show this correctly. You have the ring, very importantly, in the correct location. This, we've seen many of this particular structure under the microscope and under macrophotography. You have one of the auspicious symbols here. And over here, you have incoherent particle pairs, and they're embossed. And they're coming here on the outside of the auspicious symbol. And out from the center line, you have debossed coherent particles. This is possibly 12,000 years old, and it's showing exactly how this process works. This is the George Van Tassel's integratron. It has 16 wood sections. It has a Tesla coil in here, and these things come out, and maybe something was meant to be attached from there. Each section of 16 has 3 divisions. That is 48. There is our fractal torus on the outside. This was designed to be able to look back into the past for echoes stored in the Akashic record, and to be able to read back into time, and be able to look across time to amplify the natural ability of the human to do remote viewing. And apparently some aliens came down and landed in the spaceship and told him how to build it. This, boom, is in New Mexico. Now, I was sent this earlier this week. I couldn't, I'm sorry, I can't remember the person that sent it to me, but I immediately recognized what I saw. And look at this little chappy up here. And look at this. So where you'll see this it's on the boundary of the Navajo region. But of course, in the center of the Navajo region is the Hopi Reserve. Okay? Now, when I did a video on the Nan Madol, the construction techniques used in Nan Madol, I was then told afterwards the legends about these beings coming down with the plasma being and moving these things, and these guys moving it around like Coral Castle. But I traced using Google Maps undersea elevation maps there was tunnels or a raised area going all the way to the West Hawaiian Islands. And that was very interesting to me because around about 2012, someone was staying with me and we just got into a conversation and they said, my girlfriend was a diver instructor to the elite in the Hawaiian Islands. She would take them out to special trips to these places that are off limits. And she saw these things flying around underwater and coming out of the water and going back into the water. And she started to talk about it. She is no longer with us. 5 years later, I had another person staying with us. They were coming for fertility treatment, and I recounted this story. And the woman who was from Hawaii, he was from California, said, I told you, I saw them as a kid, and I saw them when I was 30 years old. I told you, see, it's real. So after I gave that presentation on Nam Madol, some wrote to me and said that in the Hopi legends, when the land was flooded, the hoi polloi, they were sent off on ships, but the elite, they flew on these disc-shaped craft to the Americas. When I saw this, I saw something probably no one else sees other than me, and that's my affliction. I took a high-resolution image here. Thank you, Google Maps, for providing this data. And you can see another, this is, in my view, a stylized Maltese cross, which is also a very important Hopi symbol, along with the auspicious symbols. I don't know when this is made, but I actually don't care whether this is a prank or it's real because of this. That's the Salvis sticker in this case. It's the moon. The non-radiating boundary, exactly and precisely from many, many different pieces of research over the last 12 years, is actually marked on the landscape. And it's exactly and precisely in the right place. Not slightly, exactly. And if you rotate, so you see there's the fourth order structure here, but if I rotate that so you can see it laid down on the landscape, the top flat part of the apple exactly lines up with the box. This goes up to the apex, and this goes down to an extra line that they put down for the top of the Vesica Pisces. There's more than one. And I want you to play a little game with me. First up, it gets a hurrah, right? There's another one. I want someone to look at that QR code and tell me where is the nearest town to this. What is the nearest town? So you've got a bit.ly here, and you've got a location here, longitude, latitude, and you can just go to the QR code. You couldn't make this shit up, right? And you can go and look at this on Google Maps, and you can go and look at this one, and look. The non-radiating boundary is also very faintly and exactly and precisely in the correct place. And on this one, if you rotate it so it's in the non-radiating boundary is exactly and correctly in the right place. I found that out yesterday. So Stephanie, I'm sorry I changed my presentation in the middle of the night, but I thought, I wonder if there's any of these non-radiating boundaries on the other structures that I found. These are all within a few tens of miles, I think 50 miles of Roswell. Okay? Are they made by the Hopis? I don't give a shit. Right? Because there's some crazy dudes out there that are making exactly what it is and what it should be, what nature tells you when you look under the microscope. There you go. Non-radiating boundary. Look, if I go back, it's exactly and correctly in the right place. This is how you make an ARV. This area here is where you see on our experiments it does not affect matter outside of this part of the central part of the structure. That is why they fly off the ground at that height, right? This is the safe part. It's the little notch in the Ukon Phasara, Thor's hammer, which is exactly cloned by the Tesla logo. I mean the one that I saw and photographed in Helsinki's National Museum of Finland, right? With a notch, with the ridges over the top, even with the little bits that curve down to meet the golden ratio spiral of this 200 million year old ammonite, right? That, if you see one of these crafts in the air, you will see visual distortions, torus-like, on either side because of the way it works. It has Herxite quartz, which is one of the highest dielectric constant materials. This is from Mark McCandlish in a personal email that he sent out to just a few people. And it has over 1.2 million volts, which the thickness of Herxite quartz can maintain as it's drawn. There's 8 sections here, but can anyone guess how many sections there are around it? Yay! It's 48! Why? when we were doing the modeling, we found out that if you go beyond 48, the structure would fall apart. Just as the guy that worked on the Manhattan Project, John Archibald Wheeler, and who was the tutor of Feynman, said in that video that I showed earlier. So this is basically how it works. This, in my view, the reason it's this high off the ground is because of this. And you can spin this up to a level where it won't cause your matter to fall apart, but it'll still kind of allow this thing to float indefinitely, right? And there's patent records, patent for you guys, out there. And this whole effect is called magnetohydrodynamics. And this is a UFO design from 1967, and it's called magnetohydrodynamic propulsion apparatus. Okay? And you have these corona rings to allow for the magnetohydrodynamic effect, and by phasing these with your capacitors, you can change your pitch and your... This is the British Railways Board, awarded patent from 1972, the year I was born, for those that wanted to know. And they have a nuclear reactor in here. It could be fusion or whatever, but that's to create particles. You see, this one needs an atmosphere. This one doesn't. This can work in all atmospheres. And they also have a capacitor array to phase the relationships between the toroid that's made. Thank you very much to the organizers of the Summit 2024, all of the donors of MFMP, all of the researchers that have worked with the MFMP, my colleagues past and present, especially Matthew, Ryan, and Alan, supporters of my personal research blog at remoteview.icu, Charles, Stefan, and many donors. And I'd just like, before we get to questions, if you've got any questions, you can bid for one of 4 prints, which are signed by myself and Binjuen Huang from the University of Taipei, and 4 original Matsumoto books, the last 4 in existence, on the stand of my friend Roger Green at his stand at Breakthrough Energy. And you can also find out about a conference where you will actually be able to do experiments and physically see some of these experiments and many more John Hutchison samples if you look at this QR code or go to bit.ly alchemio. Thank you very much.